Hello and welcome to Strange Stories with the Seeker and the Skeptic. Today we're talking with Tara Kiprik. Tara describes herself as a lifelong seeker who has always looked for the science and logic behind the unexplained, something that we definitely appreciate. She had a spiritual reawakening when she discovered Dolores Cannon and her quantum healing hypnosis technique. Thank you for joining us today, Tara. We're very happy to have you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So the first thing I wanted to say is I loved in your answers to us that you said, although you're a believer, you've had very little interaction with like the paranormal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny. We like early on we interviewed Alan Greenfield, who he's kind of like a big name in ufology. Um, and he said the same thing to us. Like he is so interested. He spent his entire lifetime like researching this stuff but has had very little experiences. So he could commiserate with you.
Absolutely. There's a part of it that feels super frustrating, and then there's a
Yeah.
part of it that's like, well, okay, that's just not my journey this go around.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think what is like important to point out is that just because you haven't been experiencing things like that your entire life doesn't mean that you're not gifted or have those skills and abilities. They're always there for you to develop and flex like muscles. And when you start to flex them, I'll also speak from experience, you do start to kind of have a little bit more of those types of experiences.
So what did that look like for you? Like on your journey, kind of like starting to flex those muscles? Like what kind of developed for you?
So definitely my intuition. That has been a huge focus and development for me because even though I've never really I've never had psychic experiences as a child or mediumship or anything like that, as I've been getting more and more into spirituality and my connection to the universe and whatever God, um, I've always kind of known that all you need is already within you, right? Like we all have those abilities. We just have to learn how to tap into them. And really, in the more recent years, developing my intuition and being able to trust myself and having me be the first person that I go to when I'm faced with a decision or healing or is very empowering for me because I was definitely one of those people that sought outside of myself, right? Asking opinions of coworkers, friends, doctors, parents, siblings, whatever, and always kind of having to filter their experiences and how is that affecting their advice to me? And do I want their experiences or do I want to create my own experience? So it really was a huge empowering thing to have happened to be able to learn to trust my gut and trust my heart, my visions, myself really as a whole. And so that has really opened up. And then that opens up other gifts, right? So I've been practicing like connecting to higher consciousness and channeling like guides and things like that. So it starts to open up all kinds of doors for sure.
Love everything that you just said. For so many reasons, because I agree with you. Like we do have the answers. We can tap into that higher level of consciousness that we all have access to. We just have to learn how to do it. But just a little while ago, I received that message of I was going to ask, like, okay, long story short, I won a book cover design, like a free one off of TikTok today. It was very exciting. And so, like,
Awesome.
I was like, oh, what should I like? I don't even have any ideas for like this book for like well, I mean, I have ideas for the book, but for the cover. And I was like thinking about like putting it out to people, like, what should I do? And then I heard very clearly in my mind of you don't need to ask anybody else. You need to go inside and you need to ask yourself. And so
Right.
you literally just said that. And I mean, as soon as I heard that in my brain, I'm like, that is absolutely true. I don't need to
Mm.
ask anybody else. But I think that's so true for so many things. Like everybody has such different experiences and different, ways of seeing the world that might or might not resonate with you, so it's better to tune into yourself.
Absolutely. I always say that's the first place to go. Sometimes you
Yeah,
need help, right? Sometimes we
sure.
need to talk stuff
That
out.
perspective, yeah,
Right. Yes,
absolutely. I'm
definitely.
with you.
Yeah, but definitely when you can make that first place yourself, that's
Yep.
a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And that's what drew me to QHHT, right? And Dolores Cannon, like that's where all that it's just it's within you. We all have access to it. Even the most whatever you would call quote unquote normal people, right? That aren't psychics and mediums and spiritual advisors, like you can tap into it and it's a lot easier than you would think.
Yeah.
Oh, what does just for anyone who's not heard of this before, what does QHHT stand for?
Oh, sure. Sorry. So QHHT is quantum healing hypnosis technique.
So tell us all about Dolores Cannon and this technique because I know zero, but I'm very interested.
Okay, awesome. So Dolores Cannon started to do this type of work like hypnosis. She was a hypnotherapist way back in, I want to say the 70s. I could be a little off, but in the 70s. And it was one of those things like if anyone's familiar with Dr. Brian Weiss, like it was something that she kind of stumbled upon, this past life regression. And through her work, what she started to notice was not only were past life events and experiences and emotions and relationships affecting the lives that we're living now, but people around the world in different cultures, different religions, races, whatever, whatever, were coming back with similar information that until that point was unknown. And I mean, you could even say it's still unknown, but like how they built the pyramids or stuff about energy and crystals and just, I mean, things that would blow your mind. But, when you start to say, like, how are all these people coming back with the same information? It starts to make a lot of sense, right? Like, how is this, whatever, 25-year-old from Arkansas matching up with things that this 60-year-old from China is that, like,
Mhm.
it's kind of there's a part of you that starts to trust what's coming through. And so she just really dove very deep into that. And one of the things that they also found was when you connect, so in QHHT, not only do you do past life regression, but you connect to that part of you that is connected to all, right? That part that is able to access knowledge across space and time, energy, instantaneous healing, all kinds of things like that. And so when you connect to that part of you, you can receive understanding about things that are going on in your life, whether they're from past lives, from childhood experiences, recent experiences, and really uncover what's going on and heal your body. And that is one of the main major things, again, that drew me to it. Because, just having that awareness around what's going on is enough to start the healing process. And that's something else they found through all of those sessions that she did is that it was always a very similar thing, right? Like everyone who was experiencing diabetes, let's say, was reporting the same emotion attached to it. Everyone that had pain in their right knee was reporting having trouble taking a step or moving forward or, things like that. And so again, it's like, how can you, when everybody across the board
Mhm.
has the same answer, it's hard to not trust it.
I mean, that part in particular about like the physical issues sounds very familiar, similar to like Louise Hay. You
Mm-hmm.
know, You Can Heal Your Life, that book, where it's like if you have this physical issue, here's the energetic and emotional root to it and the way of kind of like reprocessing it. Do you feel like there's some similarities there?
Oh, for sure. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Louise Hay and even Dolores's daughter, Julia Cannon, she developed a technique called Soul Speak, which incorporated a lot of what went on in Dolores's sessions. And so now we can again, same thing, but not with QHHT, just like a different modality,
Mhm.
guiding people to go within to uncover like what is the message that the body is trying to send by experiencing these illnesses, ailments, aches, pains, you know, whatever it is. And again, it's even being backed up scientifically. I read recently there was like a Harvard study that came out, and I might not get the numbers right, and I excuse
That's
myself,
okay.
but it was something about like women who have PTSD are some ridiculous number, 50% more likely to develop like reproductive cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer. And, you know, it's like, how can you deny that these emotions are trapped in the body and causing us sickness and illness? And but the good news is that we can heal them, right? We can uncover them, we can release them. It's really about understanding. And sometimes just even a perspective shift can really change what, you know, the trajectory of what happens.
Yep. I mean, that study is very similar to the ACE study that they did. I think that was back in the 90s, and that's adverse childhood experiences. And so they would talk to people who had had traumatic childhoods and, um, you know, kind of compared it to health issues later on in life with like taking into account factors like smoking and drinking and stuff like that. Even the people who just had the adverse childhood experiences were much more likely to develop, you know, cancer and heart disease and stuff like that. So, I mean,
Mhm.
I think there is a lot of, I think there is science is starting to catch up to be able to show like there's direct correlations between emotional experiences and physiological experiences.
Absolutely. It's about time. No.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you.
I mean, that does make sense. I've known some people who are medical practitioners over the years who have said that they feel like you give yourself a better chance of surviving a thing in a positive way if you think it's possible. If you and there's studies over the last decade that people who think that their cancer meds are going to work have a better response rate. People who don't think their cancer meds are going to work have a worse response rate. And then there's been a lot of studies about just placebo. Like if you know, even people who know they're being given a sugar pill, they're like there are people doing studies saying, hey, we're going to give you the sugar pill and we hope this helps you, and they have like a slightly better chance than not. So I mean that tells me that there's something to it at least. You know, I think that it's not going to fix everything, but nothing's going to fix everything. I think that in any situation, if you have any kind of chronic anything, you should still, you know, have a doctor in the mix somewhere, and you should still go through those, you know, those scientific quote scientific. You know, we don't have the best words for things sometimes, but the more accepted medical methods should still be pursued. But I think that if you don't at least give something else a shot, you are probably not giving yourself the best chance. Just in
Well,
case anybody's listening with some chronic issues, do everything, do all of it.
yeah.
Yeah, because you have to find what works for you, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, again, having yourself be one of the areas to kind of check in with is a huge thing. Like, even speaking personally, I struggled for most of my life with eczema. Um, Chronic. And it wasn't that bad for most, you know, my whatever, I'd have a patch here, a patch there, whatever. But then in the more recent years, like I had a breakout all over my entire body. And it was painful and horrific, you know, like probably one of the worst experiences I've ever gone through. And I went to doctors and naturopaths, and, you know, they really, and I'm not saying don't go to doctors. That's not at all what
Yeah.
I'm saying. But I did, like I tried, right? I tried, the dermatologist wanted to give me injections. The naturopath changed my diet and also gave me like vitamin injections and all of that. And none of it worked. And it repressed it for a while, you know, and actually just a few months ago, it came up again very badly. And this time I like let it run its course and I dove in deep and I learned and I let my emotion, I sat with it and I sat with my emotions and really discovered like where this was stemming from. And it's so funny, like, and I, for a while, I had been complaining to my husband and, I was like, man, I feel like my skin is on fire. Like I am burning from the inside out, burning. And I just kept over and over, like, I'm burning, I'm burning. I feel like I'm burning. And I think my brother might have said to me one day, he's like, why aren't you doing this stuff to yourself? And he's like, what are you doing? Like, find someone to do it for you or you do it to yourself, So I did. I did a past life regression on myself and I saw a life where I was like a keeper of knowledge is really the only way I can describe it, whether you want to call it a healer or a witch or whatever it was. There was me and another woman and they, we were feared, right? The knowledge was feared. And so they tried to kill us and they tried to hang us, but we didn't die. And so then they burned us. And during the regression, like I could feel that throughout my entire body. And I, asked for understanding, asked for awareness, and then asked my higher self for help healing. And they told me in that moment, they said that they could release 85% of that energy from that past life and that the rest of it would kind of continue to release over time. And that was a huge turning point in the outbreak of eczema. It within a few days just started to get better and better and better. And I would say I'm 95% gone. And really there's like a little fear, no fear of it returning. It feels very much like that's something that is in the past, and not something that I need to kind of worry about or deal with moving forward. And that's not the first time I addressed it either. You know what I mean? Like in all honesty and reality, like I had been addressing eczema and thought that it was many different things throughout my spiritual journey, throughout my life. And it just so happened that at that point, like that's what needed to be uncovered. And like I said, there were a lot of emotions and experiences from this life that were contributing to it. But had I not sat with it and dove in and uncovered it, I'd probably still, I imagine I would still be dealing with it right now.
It's very interesting. And to me, that just says like for so many of the things that we experience, like our challenges, our health issues, our mental health issues, like it's not just one thing. There's so many different layers, right? And so if you're
Yes.
just addressing the physiological layer, obviously we need to do that, but you could be missing some things that are deeper roots of that.
Absolutely. Yes.
So you might heal the eczema for a little while with medicine, right? And then it keeps coming back. Yeah.
That's right. Yes. I agree. Everything is layers. It's just
Mhm.
peeling back the onion.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us, what does a QHHT like session look like? Like walk us through like what that would be.
Yeah, absolutely. So QHHT sessions typically last about 5 hours, just depending
Wow.
on the person. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a really in-depth, deep regression type of work. So we start with like what we call an interview. So where I'm just talking to my client, for a few hours sometimes. It just kind of depends about their life, what they've been through, what brings them to this point, what they're looking to understand, move forward from, heal, release, whatever, even curiosity, whatever it looks like for them. And then we move into the hypnosis. And the hypnosis itself is divided into two portions. So the first portion is what we refer to as the past life regression. And I just encourage everyone, like, just be open because you never know what you're going to see. You can see memories of this life, a past life, a future life, an in-between place, extraterrestrial type memories, fantastical type memories, ancestral. It really just depends on what's most appropriate for you in that moment. The higher self, the soul, the divine really guides the session. So I just encourage, like, just be open, and then even if I always say, like, you don't even really need to believe in past lives, because you can just be shown a story that your mind needs to see unfold in order to have a better understanding of something or move forward from something. It's really about allowing whatever comes through to just come through. And I encourage people to allow their imagination to go, because I believe that our imagination is what connects us to these higher levels of consciousness, dimensions, realms, whatever you want to say. And so after the past life portion, then we connect to the individual's higher self. And that's where the magic happens. That's where we ask for understanding, for healing, for, again, curiosity questions, why they showed them the life that they showed, questions about their relationships, their life, really anything. The mind is the only limitation in what can be asked and answered in a session. And then that's it. And then it's all recorded. And then I count them out, wake them up, and we talk about what they saw. And so it's pretty interesting. Like, people tend to have like an in-between type of experience, right? When Dolores first started doing this 40 years ago, most people went completely out, like completely unconscious. They would wake up an hour and a half later, and there's an hour, an hour and a half of tape, and they're like, what happened? And
Okay.
now, as we've been ascending and evolving as a species, they're finding that we are more aware for things that we were never aware for before. So we're aware for like certain types of meditation, states of trance, hypnosis. And so they feel aware when they're having the experience. They're like, yeah, I know what's going on. I know what I'm saying, what you're saying. And then they come out of the hypnosis, and I ask what they remember, and they're just like, it's like a dream. It starts to fade so fast as soon as you come out of it. It's so interesting. Yeah, it's super interesting.
Do you feel like past life is the right terminology?
No.
Okay. Me either. So I want you to tell us why you feel like maybe that's kind of not exactly the right terminology.
I think it's the best terminology that we have right now, because we experience time in a linear fashion. I don't think that time is linear. So it's really like everything that has ever happened is happening right now. So, that's why people have like sometimes they experience those weird overlaps, right? Well, they'll experience a past life, but it's almost like, but I was already alive,
Mm-hmm.
when this was happening. So how it's because your consciousness, is my experience and belief, is that your consciousness is split into, I mean, a million different pieces, right? We're all connected. We're all one. So every part of my consciousness is experiencing something different. And it's a matter of just being able to tap into it. So I really think that it's all just happening right now.
Yeah.
That's a
It
hard kind
does.
of concept to explain.
It is, but I mean I think you're right. That's how I understand it as well, in a way of not really understanding it. But
Right.
I think I've been shifting my language to more of like alternate lifetimes.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like it's something different than what I'm experiencing right now, but like it's still happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere
Mm-hmm.
in the quantum timeline somewhere.
Right.
Um, how often would you say, like, in the sessions that you do with people, that what the alternate lifetime that they're experiencing is from a world that is similar to ours versus like a different realm, a different universe?
Ooh. I would say most most people, maybe like, if I had to put a number on it, 70%, 65, 70%, are experiencing past lives that are of an earthly type of
Okay.
experience. But it really just depends on the individual because even the people that experience earthly lives, that doesn't mean that they haven't had other types of lives.
Mm-hmm.
That just means that what they're experiencing right now is best explained and understood, or a direct reflection of another earthly life that they've had,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yep.
Because for a long time, even for myself, like I experienced life after life of just earthly things. And we call them like potato picking lives because if you're just trying to get through the day, right? Like just like us now, most of us are not famous. We don't have our names on front pages of newspapers. Like we're just trying to get through the day. And that's what a lot of people see. But there's so much correlation to what they experienced then, the patterns that they experienced then. And it's like, did they learn, or are they kind of repeating it now? Is that energy kind of still stuck with them? Are they calling it in? Do they need to relearn the lesson, or whatever? But like I experienced a lot of earthly type lives, and then all of a sudden they just started showing me like these fantastical lives, and I was kind of blown away. I was like, oh, so I did have even though like I've saw so many earthly lives, like there is that part of you that, I mean, we're infinite. There's no constraints to our
Mm-hmm.
energy.
What are some of those fantastical lives you've seen?
Oh, so I think the first fantastical life that I saw for myself, I was what I can only describe as like a forest troll or nymph or something. Like I can't
Okay.
even, I
Yeah.
don't know the name of what they
Yeah.
were, but I looked like those little troll dolls with the crazy hair, you know?
Yeah.
And and we were tiny, and we kind of looked over the forest, took care of the forest. But what was really awesome was, so we all had our own like color, like I was red. And then there was like a white one and a blue one and a green one, like that. And I would spread seeds, and I spread the seeds on the backs of dragons. And like, so I had a dragon, and it actually showed me that that dragon was a dog that I had in this life,
Mm-hmm.
that I had a super strong connection with.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very cool to see that. Um, and other lives as like just what I would only be able to describe as a being, like an extraterrestrial type being. And I saw the point where I stopped eating food and went to like liquid or plasma, or some kind of opalescent type of drink. So it was showing me like the ascension of that, like no longer being bound to having to eat, and kind of evolving past that. So that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool.
Very, very cool.
Yeah. And they all correlated, even if it didn't make so much sense in the
Mm-hmm.
moment, right? It, as you look back and kind of let it unfold and re-examine months, years later, you're like, oh, I get it. Like I see why they showed me that at that point.
What would you say are some of like the lessons you've learned about just these past lives and karma in general? Like why is this so important for people to kind of like explore and learn about?
I think it's important to explore and learn about because these energies are affecting us. At least that's what my work has shown me,
Mm-hmm.
that even if you don't even think about it, like there's stuff that's going on, and there's a reason that you're going through it. Just like when you look back at the life you're living now, your experiences add up and they make you the person that you are. And the experiences don't just stop in this lifetime, they extend to all lifetimes. So it's like a cumulative of all those experiences. And um, you know, the lives that people see, they didn't always learn the lesson to put themselves first, right? To not let whatever society or parental or family like things control them. And so they're trying to learn it now. Um, Even just for whatever reason, one is sticking out, like this energy of waiting, right? Waiting for someone, something to be whole or complete or happy when that energy is available to you at any time. You just have to choose it. Um, and so it's just like the traumas and experiences of this life, like we hold that energy, and unless we deal with it, it's affecting us on some level, right? It might not be a conscious level, but certainly an energetic level. And people have had all kinds of experiences, like, especially with our health. I've had people struggle with, like, one woman came, she had pain from head to toe. I think she was technically diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And she was shown a past life where she was kind of in, like, living in a community or village, like in the woods, like, living off the land and things like that. And she, for whatever reason, I don't remember, went off on her own in search of something, and she got crushed by a pile of rocks, and she eventually passed, but she had been there for a few days,
Mm.
in that agony, in that pain, feeling that regret for going out on her own, feeling all of those feelings. And she carried that with her. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure why we carry energy like that sometimes,
Yeah.
like, sometimes I think it's to steer us in a certain direction so that we either don't make the same mistakes again. A lot of times we say it's that we want to remember so that we can learn differently and behave differently this time. But again, just uncovering where that energy comes from and understanding why you've carried it forward is enough a lot of times for the higher self to release it so that, you don't have to continue experiencing that discomfort and that pain. And that goes along with another one that comes to mind is, I had a woman that had very struggled her entire life with her weight. Feeling like no matter what she did, exercise, dieting, eating, like, it didn't matter. She held extra weight. And in the regression, she was shown life after life after life of different types of starvation,
Mm.
like being I can only think of the word Eskimo, some kind of native and starving to death because they couldn't find food, being a farmer and having the land kind of die off and needing to constantly be moving and searching for food and not having enough food. And one of them was even a life where she was a young girl, and I believe it was like a stepfather who would kind of hold dinner over her head and wouldn't let her eat if she didn't behave appropriately. So they showed her all of these lives, and they explained that her body on a cellular level is holding extra weight because it doesn't know that that's over. It doesn't know that that
Yeah.
experience is over. It remembers. And so it was that. It was like we can't let go because we don't know when the food is coming again. So we're going to store it as much as we can. Um, yeah, so it's super interesting to see how these things affect us and how we do hold the energy of those experiences. And
Oh,
also how easy it is to let it go. You said about karma. I mean, I've had people come in and, like, it's really just about the awareness of it. Because having a right, even just now, like, when you become aware of something, it immediately starts to change,
mhm.
and your experience of it is different, and you're like, oh, okay, now I know I'm doing that, and I can either
Yep.
continue doing it or not. So it really, it's just fascinating how much we carry, but also I would say how easy I think that's the key also to remember, is that, yeah, we might be carrying it, but it's easier than we think to release ourselves of it.
Yep. I mean, with what you were just saying, like, it reminds me of Bessel van der Kolk's work, The Body Keeps Score. And so that's all about trauma and how the body keeps track of trauma, holds it in the cells. But it's like this is taking it the next step, the next layer, where it's not just the body, it's not just the cells that's storing it, it's like your whole energy field is
Mhm.
storing it and keeping score.
Absolutely. And trying to keep you safe.
Yeah,
That's, you know,
absolutely.
it's not
Yeah.
fighting against you. It's trying
Yeah.
to keep you safe.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done some past life work or alternate life work myself in the Akashic records, and that story that you just shared about that woman holding excess weight, I had a lifetime as a little boy where I starved it to death. And this lifetime I have struggled with holding on to excess weight. And so I'm very aware of it. Um, but there's still energetic layers that need healing. So I definitely, you know, resonate a lot with the stories that you're sharing and the work that you're doing.
Oh, yeah, I know it's really, I feel so blessed to be able to kind of carry on Dolores's legacy and just keep developing it and sharing it with
Mhm.
people, you know?
Anytime someone talks about this kind of stuff, it kind of reminds me of well, the Alan Watts was a kind of a beat poet guy. Said you are the universe experiencing yourself, itself, and if you assume something like a soul, defining that however you want to, uh, and if he's right about that, then why would recycling not happen? And so, I don't think it's a big stretch to get to that. And we know through psychology that food scarcity as a child can cause you to have, because we're going down that theme. Food scarcity as a child can cause you to have weight problems as an adult. And so, if there is such a thing as a soul, and they do get recycled, it would not be too much of a stretch, I think, to presume that that same type of thing can happen across those barriers, especially if we are in fact the universe experiencing itself, because it would be something that would probably continue over time. So I don't think that that's a massive stretch given those parameters. Just something I'm curious about. Something in the questionnaire you returned to us. You said that you have witnessed multiple accounts of instantaneous physical healing. That would imply kind of plural. What types of things have you seen that with?
Yeah, so I would say what I can visually be aware of are people with chronic pain. Just recently I had a man come in and he said he experienced like psoriatic arthritis from head to toe, and psoriasis and maybe like allergies and blood pressure. I don't remember all of it, but definitely the psoriatic arthritis. And he said one of the things that he wanted to be able to do most was play basketball with his sons. And so we did the session. I don't even remember exactly oh, I do remember, but his past lives, he experienced his past lives, his higher self, they cleared the arthritis. And when he like came out of the hypnosis, he was literally walking around my room doing squats, like
Ah,
without having to hold on to anything, and he was like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And just able to move with a freedom that he did not have when he entered that room. And so those are the types of healings that I can like visually perceive, right? When people come in all stiff and they leave like just with this free feeling. Even one of my neighbors, so across the street from my house, there's like a farm stand. And just the other day, he said to me, he goes, I remember one woman, she could barely walk going into your house. And when she came out, she walked over and picked up a watermelon and carried it back over to her car. Like, so, those kinds of things like I can visually experience, but even the things that I can't experience, it's obviously would then be hard for me to kind of say, this is what happened. But,
mhm.
you know, I'm going off what the higher self is telling me is happening in that moment. People do tend to, I've had people purge after the session, like before leaving my house, like, needing to kind of physically purge, bodies trembling because there's so much energy flowing through them. Um, People coming in wearing glasses, leaving without glasses, So yeah, it's it's amazing. It's amazing to witness those kinds of transformations and not uncommon.
Yeah. So it's very deep, deep healing that happens. I mean, 5 hours is a long time, but like still, in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, that's a quick amount of time to heal these issues that people have probably been dealing with for years.
Or
Yeah.
lifetimes.
Or lifetimes. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So in a session, are you, I just want to make sure like I kind of understand it. Like, are you
Sure.
communicating with their higher self?
Oh,
You
absolutely.
are. Okay.
Yes, I'm speaking directly to the higher self.
Okay.
Sometimes the conscious mind can kind of like wedge its way in,
Yeah.
but I'm aware if that were to happen, and I ask it very lovingly to please step aside, so that we
Okay.
can continue the work. And some people are a little more um, combative than
Hmm.
others. But I would say 96% of the time, I'm fully able to have the conscious mind step aside and just, and the conscious mind and the higher self work together a lot because
Yeah.
we question ourselves, but a lot of times we know
Hmm.
what needs to happen. We know the changes we need to make. We just either don't like it, don't want to hear
Yeah.
it. So the higher self is very willing to have the conscious mind kind of come in and chime in and work with the person as well.
So is the higher self speaking through the person, or are you like internally talking to the higher self?
Oh
If
no,
you understand what I mean.
yes, I do. No, the higher self is speaking through the
Through the
person.
person. Okay.
And it's
Interesting.
cool because I know that I probably don't notice it as often as it happens because I don't know them that well, but
Hmm.
you can tell there's a change in the voice.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's like softer or I mean, I've had inner childs come through and they
Hmm.
sound and it's like a 50-year-old woman sounds like she's, 5 again.
Yeah.
Like it's just so fascinating that and people don't know that. You know what I mean? Like they don't know that that's what happened. And they're certainly not doing it for my benefit. But it is very cool that you can, especially the person, when you go back and listen, you can hear the difference in your daily talking voice and
Hmm.
the voice that's coming through on the tape.
Very cool. What drew you to this work? How did that start for you?
So it's so funny. I was going through my what I'll call a reawakening because I've always been very spiritual into, tarot cards and crystals and candles and witchcraft and things like that. But I was going through a reawakening, and my mom was actually kind of on a parallel journey. And one day she just came downstairs and she was like, Tara, you got to listen to this lady on YouTube, Dolores Cannon, and she shared a video with me, and I just like listened, and it was just so fascinating. So I just kept listening and kept listening. And like I said, when I understood how she gathered all this information, it was like that ping of like, see, it's all within you. It's all already within you. You have this ability, you have this knowledge, you just need to learn how to tap into it. Um, so I eventually sought out my own session, my own QHHT session, and that was beyond life changing. Definitely sent me off. I did like a total 180 in my life. I was not prepared. I was not at all prepared for the turmoil that surfaced in my life. But it was all, looking back, exactly what I needed. It was probably one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do in my life, but I would never be where I am today without that. And even I think in my session, I asked, like, what is my purpose here? What am I meant to be doing? Which is like the number one question that people ask in sessions. And they said, I forget the wording, but it was like communication. And I believe they even said this, but I didn't know what that meant. Like, I didn't pick up on this meant QHHT, like,
Yeah.
and they were talking about consciousness and channeling consciousness. And so it was very interesting. And it just, after I had that experience, and I did have one of those experiences where like energy was surging through my body. I felt like I was vibrating the entire time. And I just felt called to be able to bring this to people. I'm like, we need to know that we have this ability. We can access all of this. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about QHHT, aside from the healing and the uncovering and the releasing, is like it begins or strengthens, if you've already begun it, that conversation with your higher self, with your intuition, right? What does that sound like? What does that feel like in my body when I get that understanding and that message? Do I feel it in the back of my head? Do I feel it in my heart? Like, what does it sound like? So I also feel like it's the beginning of starting that conversation and turning within for the answers.
I think that part's really important for people because it can be difficult to discern, like, what is higher consciousness versus my parts coming through, or, my ego. And a lot of times your higher self is the quietest voice in the room.
Yeah.
So if you're not listening.
That's right. So subtle, right?
Yeah.
So subtle. Nudges, feelings, whispers. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I always say, I think the one tip, if I can, that I would give people when trying to discern your higher self from your conscious mind is your higher self is loving. And it is not negative or nasty or belittling, right? Even if it doesn't want you to do something, it's not going to say it like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
It'll be like, maybe you should try this instead.
Yeah.
And I'll say that for me was the first step in trying to differentiate what is my higher self, what is my intuition versus my kind of conscious monkey chatter mind.
Yep. I agree with you there. I always tell people, yeah, you may not like what your higher self has to say, but it will always be very kind about it.
That's right. And oftentimes a little direct.
Yeah. I think we all need that sometimes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I will say, like, what comes through in sessions is always meant for the person's highest good, right? It, like you said, sometimes the truth can be uncomfortable. We might not want to hear it or look at it or see it. But that doesn't mean that it's not the best thing for us to understand in that moment to be able to move forward.
That's true in any context. There's lots of times that, the reality of a situation will help you, but it's not always going to be what you want to hear.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
I would point something out from the beginning of this conversation. You had kind of said that you don't feel like you really had a lot in the way of experiences in the realm of paranormal stuff, but I would say that the initiatory experience that you just described should be counted as that. I think that it's easy, and I say this also for the people who are listening who think, man, it'd be nice if I could experience some kind of weird thing. It doesn't have to be Bigfoot eating out of your trash for it to be a thing that has happened. And I think that you go back to Jung and synchronicity, like synchronicities are part of the whole thing, and we dismiss stuff. Most of what is kind of quote paranormal, for lack of a better term, is stuff that can easily be dismissed by someone not experiencing it as being a mundane thing. What makes it that way is how you experience it as a person, not what other people are going to think of it. And I think that it is easy to dismiss that sometimes. So I think it's important to say that out loud sometimes.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And it's so funny, like after I say that and then I start to think about it, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. And you're right. Like I've never had Bigfoot eating out of my garbage. But and I'm certainly not someone that on a daily basis, like I said, was talking to ghosts or anything like
Yeah.
that. But if you're just a little bit open to it, right, it
Yeah.
does start to kind of come in a lot more. And play games with it. Like ask, right? Ask for a sign, ask for a
Yeah.
synchronicity, close your eyes and ask your intuition, like, show me, something to look for. And whether you see like a silver butterfly or, you know, 333 or whatever, and see how long it takes for it to kind of come up in your day to day. And you'll be surprised. You'll
Yep.
definitely be surprised.
I think we're all attuned to different frequencies. Like I channel higher consciousness, my higher self, angels, all of that. I never connect with somebody who's passed on. You know what I mean? But there's
Right.
people out there where that's what their frequency is attuned to. It's to, to people who have lived an earthly experience. And, I think that might be true for you too. Like that you're just attuned to a different frequency. And so that your experience is in a different dimension.
Right. Right. And I think it's awesome to have these types of conversations because I think most of us, when we think about it, right, we do think of the earthly
Mhm.
mediums and or even like aliens coming down in my
Yeah.
backyard or whatever, taking me here. Like those are the kinds of things we think of. And it's so much more, there's
Mhm.
so much more to it. It's so much more expansive than we even realize.
Yep.
And it is really all around us.
Yes.
Just have to tap into it.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question. So, if time is always happening, like it's all happening at the same time, the healing that you're doing in these sessions, is it affecting that lifetime as well?
I believe so. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Even it like because I look at it as in this lifetime, right? When you can go back and give love to that inner child that maybe was missing it then, or the attention or the validation, or whatever it is, it literally changes how you feel now.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I absolutely believe that when we go back and we examine those lives and release that energy, that it's being released on all levels. I don't think that it's just happening like in our reality. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, again, that would be a very linear thing
Hmm.
to have happen. And I don't think it's like that. So yes, I absolutely believe that you are on some level healing um, that past version of yourself or that alternate version of yourself.
Yeah. So I love it. Very interesting.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad you brought that up because I was thinking that when we were talking about it, and then we just got off on something
Yeah.
else. So I'm glad you brought that back around.
Yeah. There's just so much to explore, and it's just all good stuff, and I think could be helpful for a lot of people.
Hmm.
So tell us about your services. Obviously, you do the QHHT sessions. So just tell us a little bit about like what you have to offer and where people can find you.
Yeah, sure. So I do the QHHT. Those are in person only.
Okay.
So if you're local, I'm in South Carolina. So I get clients from South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. But I also offer online services. So quantum healing, past life regression, soul speak, really, again, just trying to guide people to go within to learn and
Mhm.
uncover and kind of get used to that. And so my website is cosmicqhht.com. My email is tara@cosmicqhht.com. And you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, under Tara QHHT. So and I'm open if people have questions. I would be more than happy to talk, help explain, see what would be the right type of session for them. Or even if they just want to pick my brain, like I'm open to it.
Awesome.
I'm here to help, here to help.
Awesome. And you had mentioned you have some kind of container that's starting in August. What's that?
Yes, so it actually got pushed back a little bit. I'm hoping to launch it by the end of the year. But so what it is a really in-depth look at your life on all different levels, right? So it's a combination of past life regression, quantum healing, soul speak, which is again tuning into the body and uncovering the physical ailments, learning how to interact with your energy centers and your chakras and open them and cleanse them. And I would say the main thing is that after, what it's meant to do is to get you comfortable with tuning into yourself, right? And again, have you be that first line of defense, if you will. And there's group Zooms involved to build community. There's one-on-one like impact sessions to really help you process, because these things can bring up emotion, and I totally understand that people may need help dealing with that. So, I'm available to help them kind of uncover like how am I going to navigate this, right? Now that we've brought all this stuff up to the surface, like how do I navigate this in my daily life? So it's really an all-encompassing deep dive into your life, and it's meant to really connect you with yourself and then progress you forward.
We will definitely put all of your links in the show notes.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yes, I have loved this conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. It has been awesome.
Oh, I appreciate you guys so much for having me on. It was so good. I love talking about it, love sharing it. So thank you,
Absolutely.
and I appreciate you.
Yeah, we appreciate you too. Thank you so much for being here. If you have a strange story you want to share with us, email us at seekerandskeptic@gmail.com. We look forward to talking to you soon.